Welcome back into the Bulldog Blitz. I'm joined by our panel now. We have Matt Vacklin, who's a sports editor for the Butler Collegian, the campus newspaper, and Eric Brown, who's a sports writer for DogNet, the online news source for all things Butler. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Should be an interesting season for the Bulldogs finishing out. It's been a great season so far, 19-2 for the men. Matt, what'd you make of their three-game road trip, ending up at Wright State, winning a big one there?
Well, 3 games in 6 days, I mean, that's brutal. Something that mid-major conferences kind of have to do sometimes that the major ones don't. But to play the way they did at Wright State, when you consider how that's been a house of horrors for this team since their first win since 2003, I mean, the start they got off to, and they hadn't been playing well before that game, so it was a huge win for them.
Yeah, it was definitely a good way to finish off the road trip after dropping that tough one to Green Bay. Came back and got a tough-fought win over Detroit, and then we saw some solid bench play from the Bulldogs in the win over Wright State. Zach Hahn came off the bench and had 17 points, 5 for 5 from 3 in the first half. I thought Garrett Butcher did a good job replacing Avery Jukes when he got in foul trouble. Got some big offensive rebounds at key points in the game.
The first conference loss for them came on the road at Green Bay, a tough Monday night game where they had to come on back. You know, was that loss in the long run, was it good for the team, do you think?
Personally, I'm not a fan of the comments when people say that it's good to lose before you go. But obviously, when you're on a long win streak, the odds start to stack against you. I do, however, think this was a big win for them. I think when you have a young team that's never been through this before, I mean, they've shown they can respond to adversity, but I think sometimes things can get too easy for a team. And I think the Green Bay game not only showed that, hey, the Horizon League's still a tough league, but it also gives them some motivation now to play out. You know, if you clinch a division too early or a conference too early, sometimes you can kind of slack a little bit after that. So I think having a team right behind them is going to push them to finish strong the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think statistically it's never good to lose a game. Obviously, Green Bay creeping up in the standings on us, but it's definitely good for a young team to lose. Now they're showing a little bit more humility, getting back to some of the things that got us here, such as not turning the ball over, playing solid defense without fouling. So those are just a few of the things we can improve on, and hopefully we'll be able to finish out the rest of the season strong.
Now, coming up this weekend, we've got UIC and Loyola at home Friday and Sunday. UIC is a tough team. They got Josh Mayo. It's on ESPNU. Loyola, maybe not as strong, but guess what? You never know with this Horizon League. Tough competition. Eric, you think this weekend could be a 2-0 sweep for them?
Oh, definitely. I think they could be. Keep preparing. We got a full week of practice to prepare for them. Obviously, UIC's got a great player in Josh Mayo, preseason player of the year, and they have Scott Vandermeer, the big center, 7-footer. And, Loyola's got some great players, too. J.R. Blount's a solid player, and Polka is also a good player who didn't play a lot against us at the win at Loyola, but he might see some more playing time in this home series here, so he could present a few problems underneath. But I think if, once again, we're able to take care of the basketball, limit turnovers, take good shots, and play Butler defense, then we'll be able to come out on top.
I think it'll definitely be an interesting homestand. On paper, they certainly should go 2-0, but with Mayo on UIC, I think anytime you have a player like that, teams like that can be dangerous. Obviously, they haven't played very well. They haven't played up to what they were predicted to be. But you add the fact that if he goes off, it's going to be a tough game for anyone. Plus, he was shut down at UIC. So you have the added motivation. That could be tough. And then this season we've seen you can't take any game for granted when it comes to Loyola. I mean, Valparaiso and Detroit have given us their 2 toughest games. So it'll be an interesting weekend. It should be 2-0, but we're definitely going to have to come out and play Butler basketball the way we have been.
Absolutely. Butler, Detroit always raises your blood pressure a little bit. You don't like to see that.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's switch sides to the women. They just beat Detroit. It was 19-19 at halftime, but they did pull out the victory. Women's team impressive this year. Only 2 losses in conference play. Eric, what do you think about them?
They've had a great season so far. Unfortunately, they had those 2 back-to-back losses on the Wisconsin road trip, and unfortunately also Green Bay is still undefeated. But, Green Bay still has to come to Hinkle Fieldhouse, and Butler was up 5 points with 7 minutes remaining in that game, so hopefully they'll be able to get a win at home over Green Bay, and maybe Green Bay will falter down the stretch on another road trip, and you never know what will happen in the Horizon League tournament.
I think they're an interesting team. Obviously, they had the little slip-up, but returning a team largely from last year, their biggest problem last season was consistency. And one of the things they've done extremely well this conference season is be consistent. Yeah. They're the second best team defensively in the Horizon League right now behind Green Bay. But they've played consistent defense, which seems to be the key for them. I looked up a stat earlier today, and the 3 times that they've given up over 50, or they've only won 3 times, excuse me, when they've given up more than 50 points this season. Yeah. 2 of those totals were 52 and 58 points. and one of those was a double overtime game. So.
All right, well, thank you guys for your analysis this week. We'll check back with you guys next week.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right, we'll be back with more of the Bulldog Blitz right after the break. Stay with us. Butler will once again be part of ESPNU's Bracket Buster this year. The Dogs will travel east to take on the nation's top scorers Steph Curry and Davidson on Saturday, February 21st. Curry is averaging over 28 points per game and has led the Wildcats to an impressive 20-4 record, good for first in the Southern Conference. Tip-off is scheduled for noon and will be the only game carried on ESPN. All other Bracket Buster action can be viewed on ESPN2, ESPNU, and ESPN360.com. The Horizon League baseball preseason rankings were released last week, and let's hope the predictions don't hold true. Butler was picked to finish in last place in the Horizon League. UIC was picked to finish first, followed by Wright State and Milwaukee. Butler finished in 7th place in the Horizon League last season with a 7-17 record in league play. There's plenty of action this weekend on campus for fans to enjoy. Friday night, the women's tennis team gets it started with a match against DePaul at 4 p.m. Then the men's basketball team takes on UIC at 7 p.m. That game can be seen against the Flames on ESPNU. On Sunday, the women's tennis team goes up against Murray State in the morning, and then you can head over to Hinkle as the Bulldogs take on the Loyola Ramblers. Tip-off is at 2 o'clock. That will just about do it for this week's episode of The Blitz. Make sure you check us out next week on YouTube, or if you're in central Indiana, you can find us through Comcast On Demand. Until next week, I'm Mark Minner. We'll see you right back here on the Bulldog Blitz.